He was gentle with you, very gentle, almost as if you were a porcelain doll that would easily break under his touch. He licked your bottom lip, asking for permission, and you granted him access to the inside of your mouth. It was your first time kissing someone. It tasted like alcohol, kind of bitter and kind of sweet. I wonder if this is what red tastes like, you thought as Kirishima's smile flashed in your head. Then you immediately pushed Bakugou away. Sorry, you apologized. You stared at the ground wide-eyed. What were you doing? How can you think of Kirishima at a time like this? Just, what does that make Bakugou? I can't do this to you. By now, Bakugou was already used to the constant pain in his chest, the wrenching sensation in his gut. He's already thrown away everything for you. He wasn't going to take a rejection for an answer. It's okay, Blue. Take your time. Give me some time. I promise, I'll get him out of there. Just keep your eyes on me, okay? He lifted your head. Just keep your eyes on me. He promised that before you truly fall in love with him, the two of you would keep your relationship a secret. Bakugou was honestly anything and everything a woman could ask for in a relationship. He was gentle, patient, caring, and he respected boundaries. He was perfect in every single way, but he wasn't Kirishima. You tried your best to fall in love with Bakugou, you really did. You two would go on dates, have movie nights at his place, and fight villains together. Being with him brought you so much joy. However, just as you were finally beginning to fall in love with Bakugou, Kirishima proposes to Aki. Bakugou didn't miss the devastated look in your eyes when you saw Kirishima get down on one knee. He grabbed your hand and gave it a tight squeeze as your heart was once again torn to pieces by the sight in front of you. You forced a smile on your face and congratulated the two. That night, you decided to break things off with Bakugou. You told him you can't do it anymore. Loving Kirishima has already become a part of you, and you don't think you'll ever be able to stop. You told Bakugou that he should find someone else, someone that truly loved him, because you holding on to him like this was just unfair and cruel. No, Blue, I'm okay, really. If you think you can't take your mind off of him, that's fine. I'll help you. That's why we're doing this, right? Bakugou held you by the shoulders. His brows furrowed, and you could see the horror in his eyes. He was scared, so scared to lose you. What did you do to deserve a man like him? That's right, you don't deserve him. I'm sorry, Katsuki. You ran. You ran because you couldn't stand it here anymore. Being around those two made it almost suffocating for you. You couldn't help but think back to the time when the three of you hung out in high school, before any of you had feelings for one another. Why? Why can't it just be like that? You walked along the streets, letting the bone-chilling wind smack you in the face. You welcomed it, for it cooled your head. You weren't great with the cold, but it was better than suffocating. You didn't have a destination. You just walked. It wasn't until you got to the entrance of Kirishima's neighborhood that you realized where your feet was taking you. You hated this. You turned around to leave, but you didn't get far before you heard a familiar voice. Are you really going to marry him? Yes, I love him. But what about me? I love you too. You stopped. It was Aki and Taku. The two of them were in the middle of a playground. You hid behind the bushes. What were they doing out here? It's past 2 a.m. Then why won't you choose me? Taku grabbed Aki by the wrist. Aki looked down. I can't. I already have Eijiro. But I loved you first. I know it took too long to confess, but you also love me. Why can't it be me? You clasped your hands over your mouth to prevent yourself from gasping. What did you just hear? Aki loves Taku? Taku, I don't want to hurt him, Aki said. Then, can I at least be by your side? Yes. Your eyes widened as you saw their faces lean towards each other. You watched them pull in for a kiss, your heart thumping in your chest like you're watching a horror movie. This isn't real. Someone tell you this isn't real. Kirishima's face flashed in your head. You remember that day he came up to you with the most beautiful smile in the world and told you he thinks he found the one. You remembered those times you, Kirishima, and Bakugou would eat out together, and Kirishima would show you pictures of his beloved girlfriend and tell you how amazing she is and how much he loves her. Tears started welling up in your eyes, for you could only imagine how hurt Kirishima would be if he found out. Oh, Red. Oh, Red. You sobbed silently. You ran away quietly, without Aki or Taku noticing. You had no idea what to do. Do you tell Kirishima? It would absolutely destroy him. But you can't just go about knowing your best friend's fiancé is cheating on him. You couldn't sleep. In the end, you could only do what you always do. Find Bakugou. You knew this was unfair, that you need to stop. But you found yourself in front of Bakugou's apartment at 4 in the morning, and you knocked on his door. When he opened the door, you saw that his eyes were red and puffy. He too had been crying. You're back! He threw his arms around you. Thank goodness, you're back! You swallowed back all the words you were originally going to say. How are you supposed to tell him? Bakugou. The almighty Bakugou was crying because of you. And now you're back to cry to him again about the man you loved, which wasn't him? How can you be so selfish? Fuck, you screamed in your head. I'm back. You wrapped your arms around him and cried. You can't hurt him anymore. This time, you weren't going to leave him. Even if Kirishima ends up breaking up with Aki, you won't leave Bakugou anymore. The next day, you decided to confront Kirishima about it, as a friend. Before you guys went out to patrol, you went up to him and asked if you could talk in private. He hesitated, but said yes. You led him to the alley next to your agency. Listen, Red, I want you to calm down and listen to me. Last night, I saw Taku and Aki at the playground in front of your neighborhood, you said. My neighborhood? You nodded. They were kissing. Kirishima's eyes widened, but he didn't say anything. Please don't ask me why I was there, but I want you to know that I'm telling the truth. I feel like it's unfair not to tell you, so... Blue, you're lying. What? I'm sorry, Blue. I know you like me. Aki told me about meeting up with you at the cafe the other day. I'm sorry about all the pain I've caused you the past few years, but I really can't return your feelings. I'm engaged to Aki now. Wait, you think I'm lying so I can get together with you? Your jaws dropped. Is this really the Kirishima you knew? The Kirishima who trusted his friends no matter what? I don't believe Aki would cheat on me. Even if I tell you I saw her with my own eyes? You could hear your heart cracking again. You didn't think it was possible since it was already shattered to dust. Kirishima didn't say anything. He just stared at you apologetically. You fought back the tears that threatened to pour out. Fine, you turned around. I wish you a happy marriage. You ignored the excruciating pain in your heart and walked on. You forced the tears back, promising yourself that you won't cry this time. This time, it was truly over. Thunder began to rumble over your head, and you could feel droplets of rain tap against your skin. Soon, the sky started to pour, and your entire body was soaked. As you were walking down the street, you couldn't tell whether the water running down your face was rain or tears. 2 months passed, and your relationship with Bakugou is going very well. You can honestly feel yourself falling for him. Whenever you're feeling down, he'd bring you flowers, shower you with kisses, and he'd make your favorite food. You truly felt appreciated, and you were slowly beginning to forget Kirishima. It hurt your conscience to know that his fiancé is cheating on him, and you're not doing anything about it. But in the end, he was the one who chose not to trust you. Hey, Bakugou whispered into your ear one morning. You had been living with him for a month now. I'm going, okay? He and Kirishima were going on a business trip to Kyoto to help with a big case on this drug-dealing organization. Okay, you muttered softly. Be safe, okay? He kissed you on the head before leaving the apartment. It was a rule that at least one of the three of you had to stay behind to watch over the city. This time, it was your turn. The two of them were going to be gone for a week, so you went on patrols on your own. You saw Aki and Taku on the street together while you were on patrol, but you decided to ignore them. Whatever happens between them wasn't any of your business now. You and Kirishima don't even talk outside of work anymore. Your friendship was completely ruined by the last confrontation. However, you were fine with that. You had Bakugou now. It was in the late afternoon when you suddenly felt a rumble. What's going on? The rumble got bigger, and the ground started to shake. You looked up to see the building start to crack. "Earthquake!" you shouted. "Everybody get out!" The earthquake came so suddenly, and it was unnaturally big. You didn't have time to think about whether or not this was actually a natural disaster or someone's quirk. You had to get everyone to safety. However, you couldn't. Even with the help of other heroes, it was impossible to get everyone. Buildings started toppling over and the city was quickly turning into hell. You suddenly got a call from a fellow hero that told you the buildings at the west were all toppled over. You couldn't help but think of Aki and Taku. Kirishima and Aki's apartment was at the west, and you just happened to see them heading that direction earlier. You quickly ran towards Kirishima's place, leaving Central City to the other heroes. When you arrived at Kirishima's neighborhood, you gasped in horror. The entire apartment complex was in ruins, and you can see bodies underneath. "Anyone! Anyone alive?" you shouted. You bent down to check on the one man whose upper body was protruding from the rubbles, but he was already dead. "Blue!" You heard Aki's voice. "Aki! Aki, is that you?" you called out. You climbed onto the debris, finding a small hole where you could hear the voice coming out from. "Blue! Help!" Aki called. You took out a mini flashlight from your pocket and flashed it into the hole. You saw Aki and Taku. They were naked. Aki did her best to cover herself up with her arms, and a piece of dirty cloth which you assumed was the blanket. "Hold on, I'll get you guys out of there," you said. Despite the anger inside you, you were a hero. It's your duty to save people. A large piece of the building was still intact over them, but they were lucky in that the other part of the building was supporting the bigger piece, creating a perfect hole where they were at. But if you tried to move anything, the structure would lose balance and the building would topple over them. In order to get them out, you would have to be the support for the bigger piece of the building. Meanwhile, Bakugou and Kirishima saw the news of what happened at your city. They were on their way back via helicopters with other heroes coming to aid the rescue. On the flight, Kirishima kept praying, muttering softly for Aki to be okay. Bakugou's brows furrowed. There was no doubt that he was worried sick about you, but he trusted you. You were strong. "It's going to be okay," Bakugou told Kirishima. "Blue's there. She's going to save them." Back where you're at, you took out your short dagger. Not many heroes carry such deadly weapons with them because it was their duty to capture, not to kill. However, your dagger was never meant for others. You took a deep breath. Your hands trembled as you pointed the blade to yourself. You can never get used to this no matter how many times you've done it. You cried as you jabbed the knife into your heart. You took deep breaths as pain started overtaking your body and tears started streaming down your face. You felt like you could die from the pain. "Blue! Blue! What are you doing?" Aki cried. She can't see you, but she can hear your ear-piercing cry. "I'm fine," you shouted as you pulled the knife out. Your wound closed up within minutes, taking away the pain as well. You dug the knife into your stomach this time. You pulled the knife out of your body and continued to stab it in your vitals. Each time you regenerate, you can feel yourself getting stronger, and each time it was more and more difficult for you to stab yourself because your body was getting harder. You kept stabbing yourself until finally, the knife broke against your skin. "Okay," you muttered as you threw the knife away. Your quirk has reached its limit, but you are now in your peak condition, your strongest form. You had to get them out before the second wave hits. You grabbed the edge of the building with your bare hands. You can hear people coming from behind, most likely other heroes and rescuers, but you didn't have time to mind them. The building started to shake as you applied force. The building was still heavy for you. Veins started popping on your arms and neck as you slowly lifted the building up. Little pieces of it started falling down, hitting you on the head, but you didn't care. Your head was strong enough to shatter them to pieces. Finally, you were able to lift it. You supported the base of the building on your shoulders, creating an opening just big enough for one person to get out at a time. "Get out! Hurry!" you shouted. Aki was just about to climb out, but as she was crawling out, she stopped. "What are you stopping here for? Get out!" you shouted. Eiichiro, Aki muttered. You couldn't move, but you did your best to turn your head. You saw Kirishima standing there in front of the fallen building along with Bakugou. Kirishima saw Aki, and from the opening you made, he can also see Taku. You can see the horror in his eyes as he stared at you guys. You were right. You were right all along. At that moment, Kirishima didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to face you. "Blue, get out of there now! The second wave is coming, any second!" Bakugou shouted at you. "Get the fuck out!" you screamed at Aki and Taku. Knowing the second wave of the earthquake was coming, Aki and Taku hurriedly crawled out from under the building and made their way to the clearing. "Blue, get out of there now!" Bakugou shouted at you. You were about to put the building down, but you suddenly hear a meow. You looked around, searching for the source. That's when you saw a little white cat trembling in the corner under the debris. You gritted your teeth as you let one arm go, letting the weight of the building rest on the other arm. You reached out for the cat. "Come here, kitty!" "Blue, it's coming! You have to get out now!" You can already feel the rumble. You snatched the cat from its corner. At that moment, you can already feel the ground shaking intensify. Your quirk was also about to lose its effect. "Katsuki, catch!" you shouted as you threw the cat towards him. Bakugou reached his hand out, the cat perfectly landing in his arms. His eyes widened in horror as everything seemed to happen in slow motion. The rubble under you started to sink as you lost grip on the building on top of you. You can see him shouting your name, but you can't hear him over the rumbling. "Gosh, and just when I finally fell in love with you," you thought. "I love you," you whispered as the building toppled over you. "Blue!" Bakugou and Kirishima screamed. Bakugou threw the cat to the ground and started dashing towards the building, but Kirishima grabbed him. "Bakugou, you can't! The ground is still shaking!" "Let me go! Let me go, Blue! Blue's still in there!" A few minutes later, the ground stopped shaking. It was over. It was finally over. "Come on, we have to dig her out!" This time, Kirishima was the first to run to the rubbles. Bakugou just stood there. His body trembled, eyes wide and stinging. You're alive, right? Your quirk is literally regeneration. No matter how fatal the wound is, you'll regenerate, right? But what if you don't? What if you're dead? He took a step forward, but his body froze in place. He's scared. He doesn't want to find out. Kirishima was digging through the concrete, shouting your name repeatedly. "Bakugou, what are you doing? Hurry up and help! Blue might still be alive!" Kirishima screamed. He finally snapped out of his trance. Bakugou dashed over to the fallen building and started removing anything and everything in his way. He needed to find you. He needed to make sure you're okay. You're okay. You have to be okay. After hours of digging, they finally found you. You were laying under a large piece of rubble. Your lower body was completely crushed to the point of no repair. Blood splattered everywhere on the ground. You laid there motionlessly as people removed everything above you. Bakugou jumped down and knelt beside you. "No, no, Blue, wake up! It's me, Blue, I'm back. I'm back now. Fuck, don't joke with me, this isn't funny. I know you can regenerate. This is nothing to you. You're alive. You're alive, right? Answer me, Blue." Tears streamed down his face as he patted your cheeks gently. Kirishima's lips quivered. There you were, laying there, lifeless. His best friend, the kindest, sweetest, coolest woman he's ever met, the one who spent years loving him. You never once lied to him. You wanted the best for him, and you always supported him. In the end, you even died saving his cheating girlfriend because you knew how much she meant to him. Even when you tried to warn him, he didn't believe you. Even after he had hurt you, you did your best to protect his last bit of happiness. And now, it was all over. The cat's out of the bag. You were right. His happiness was crushed, and so are you. If he had listened to you, believed you from the beginning, would you still be alive? You idiot, he muttered as a tear slowly trickled down his left eye. Why would you go so far? For some idiot like me. Perhaps you were right. The three of you really were cursed. Maybe in the next life, you'll each find your own happiness. In this life, you guys just weren't meant to be.